what we've got right here in each one of these bags are 3 different types of cots. And I thought that we'd set up these cots, talk about the pros and cons of each style of cot, how much they weigh, what they're best for, what they're not best for, and things of that nature. Let me give you an up close of these 2 right here. This one right here is by Moon Lengths portable cot. This is the heaviest one, but it's pretty compact nevertheless. And this one right here, let's see who this is by. Well, don't say. But anyway, it's a little bit lighter. It's not going to be something that you're going to take backpacking with you. But let's set them up, see how easy they are to set up, or how difficult, and whether they're worth having, and in what scenarios they might be best used for.
Welcome back to The Practical Woodsman. I'm Rhett, the creator and host of The Practical Woodsman. That's right. It's my genius which has brought this all into existence. Scientists and philosophers everywhere studying my noggin, try to figure out how it works and harness its powers. What say you and I talk about sleeping systems today in the woods or on the road? And it comes down to several different things. Cots and pads. Well, I've got 3 different distinct types of cots that I want to show off to you all in this episode of The Practical Woodsman. And I want to talk about some of the pros and cons of each of them. 2 of them I've never set up before. So we're going to do that, and I'm going to take you along with me. And we'll talk about if it's feasible to carry these sorts of things very far into the woods, what sorts of scenarios they're best for. But before we get into all that, we got to do the musical introduction to get us all in the mood. Winkety, winkety. So don't go nowhere. We'll be right back when that ends. That's right.
Put a camp up right here.
So there's 3 different types of cots that I want to show you. One is your typical cot, something that you would use in a base camp or something like that. But the other ones are packable. They're a lot lighter and they're a whole lot more packable. So I want to show those off to you. I have to warn you, I have some locusts, cicadas in my neighborhood, and they were making an awful lot of noise through parts of this video, so you're going to hear them chattering in the background, but that's all right. In addition to the cots that I want to talk about, and I'm not going to discuss hammocks. I'm not going to discuss hammocks. I don't take hammocks seriously as far as like a system for sleeping out in the woods for a lot of reasons. They're too limiting. You always have to have 2 trees. Well, what if you don't have 2 trees perfectly spaced apart? What are you going to do then? So I don't like to limit myself as to where I can bed down at night in the woods. So I like to be able to put my shelter and my sleep system kind of anywhere I want to. Cots, I love cots. If I had my druthers, I would sleep in a cot all the time. It's a shame that most cots just aren't light enough and aren't packable enough to take on long journeys in the backcountry. Even the ones that are made to be ultra compact and light are still not as compact and light as I insist they be in order to make their way into my pack. That's because there are other heavy things that are more important when it comes down to it. And I say, well, should I take the cot or should I take this other thing? The other thing usually wins out. It's usually more important to me when in a practical setting once I get out into the backcountry. Before we get into this discussion about cots, let's talk about these things here. This is an air mattress, and this is just your typical foam pad. Yeah, just like an accordion style foam mat. You know what I like about these? They are indestructible. They're indestructible. They don't require any fiddling with them. You just open them up, throw them down, and you can be sleeping in no time. What I don't like about them is they're probably the least comfortable of all your sleeping options. And they don't pack down very well. It's very rare that you get these things into your pack. They usually end up dangling off the outside or the underside of a pack. But they're simple. They don't get much more simple than that. And then, of course, you've got your air mattresses. And I love air mattresses. Look how much that packs down. And that is a 4-season insulated air mattress. So they're awfully nice. Let's blow that up just so that we can take a look at it. For some consistency, let's throw this out in the grass and take a look at both of these at the same time.
So there you go. There's your air mattress and your foam mattress. And like I say, it don't get any more simple than that. It's just, oh, I'll tell you, the older you get, the less comfortable they are. The air mattresses are my go-to. They pack down to nothing. And you say, well, what if you get a hole out there in the backcountry? Well, they come with patches, and it ain't too hard usually. Find the hole, get a patch on there. That's pretty easy. So most of the air mattresses you buy nowadays will come with a little patch kit inside of them. And they're comfortable and everything. Wonderfully comfortable. Much more comfortable than these foam things. And they pack down to practically nothing inside your pack, and I love that. So this is what I usually take when I go out. Any drawbacks to these? Well, they kind of crinkle and stuff like that. I mean, they're not as comfortable as a cot. I prefer cots, to be perfectly honest about the whole thing. But variations of this, it doesn't have to be a climate. That's what I've got here. And I don't think there's any one type of air mattress that's better than the other, except I like them to be as packable as possible, and I like them to be insulated. Let's talk about insulation here for a minute.
I'm a year-round woodsman, meaning that it doesn't matter the season for me. I'll go out into the woods. My least favorite season of the year to do some really difficult and long excursion in the backcountry is, in fact, this time of year, which is summer. My favorite time of year is winter. So you might ask yourself, is it really necessary for these things to be insulated? Isn't there a certain amount of insulation that you get just from being up off the ground? Yeah, there is a certain amount of insulation you get from just being up off the ground. But what happens is that cold air will come through the mat, and no matter how good your sleeping bag or your blankets are, you will feel that cold. You'll be cold from underneath. And so, yes, it is important that these things be insulated to a certain degree, in my opinion. Now, in the dead of summer, I don't carry an insulated air mattress. I just carry sort of like a pool float. So it doesn't have to have any insulation if it's in the dead of summer. But in the other seasons, I like to have that insulation. And you saw how small, how compact this is when it's packed down. That's with insulation. So you can get them smaller without the insulation, but adding a little bit of insulation to these air mattresses really does not add that much bulk or weight to the overall thing if you're willing to go searching and find a good one. Now, here's something to keep in mind if you do end up taking a cot with you out into the woods, or even if you find an ultra light one and you end up taking it into the backcountry with you. You get the same problem with a cot that you'll get with a hammock, and that is the air that or the wind that goes underneath of you and takes your heat away. So when you're using a cot, you're also going to need something like this. Maybe not in the summer, maybe not in the dead of summer, but in the other seasons, you're going to want some kind of insulation on top of the cot. So I think that's the only thing I don't show later on in the video that we're about to watch. Let's go ahead and get that video started, and we'll look at these various different types of cots. None of them are all that expensive. I think they're in like the $60 range, maybe a little bit more, but let's start the video and we'll follow along together. I'll tell you right now, the one that I ended up being most impressed with was that Moon Lens cot. You'll see me setting that up here in a minute. This is just your typical cot, and I keep several of these. They fold in different ways and stuff like that, and some are easier than others, but they're very heavy and they're very bulky. Let's say you're in a family or something like that, you got 4 or 5 different cots like that. That's going to take up an awful lot of your SUV if you're using them for camping, and they're very heavy. But along with that is a lot of stability, a lot of hardiness to these types of cots. I love them. It's a wonderful sleeping experience. But again, like I said, you're going to want to put in the colder seasons, you're going to want to have a pad, either an air pad, or you're going to want to have a foam pad.
That's pretty comfortable.
On top of that cot, because the air is going to move underneath of it, and you're not going to have any insulation. You will end up getting very cold, no matter how well covered up you are with down or wool, sleeping bags, or blankets. Here's this Moon Lens cot. I had never set it up, so this is my first time setting her up, and I'll tell you what, I'm super impressed with her. I love the design. It's a really nice quality cot. And you can imagine at that size that it packs down, you could take 5 or 6 of them anywhere you want to, no problem. Now, first cot we were looking at, you know, the one we just unfolded, that typical cot. Where's that's going to be best used at? That's going to be best used in a base camp that you can drive into. Even be useful at home. If you want to keep your basement prepared for, you know, emergencies and stuff like that, storms, it's not a bad idea. Have 4 or 5 cots like that first one we unfolded down in your basement. Even for guests. I keep one around here for a buddy of mine. He comes over, he likes to sleep in my studio, and so I just unfold one of those cots. He sleeps right here in my studio on that cot. Of course, you're not going to take a huge cot like that anywhere where you have to walk, right? Anywhere where you have to carry things in any distance at all. So that's where this moon lens cot comes in really beautifully. I like to be up off the ground, like a bed height, cot height type of thing. It's nice for working around a shelter, for getting up and out of, up out of and down onto. And I really like having a little bit of height to my cot like that. So the moon lens here provides that spectacularly, and I just love it. I can't speak highly enough of this moon lens cot. And I think I'll have to look it up, but it felt to me like it weighs about 10 pounds, something like that, maybe a little bit lighter than that. But, you know, it's definitely not a light package. But I love its packability. I love its design. You're going to see a really cool design feature to this thing here in just a second. Really robust. Those, they're not feet, but those brackets, I guess, what would you call that? They're not round. They're squared off. And I imagine that provides a lot of strength. I think the moon lens cot here that I'm showing off would be great for road trips. If you're only going in about 2 or 3 miles into the woods, I'd be willing to carry that weight for that type of comfort, absolutely. But definitely not going to carry that on a 30-mile, 50-mile excursion through mountains. Much too heavy for that. You'd have to exclude too many things out of your pack to make that thing fit and be able to carry that weight. And those things that you'd have to exclude out of your pack are just not worth excluding.
So it looks like I get that into one pole. Looks like I get that into one pole like that. And then there's a mechanism right here where that lifts up, hook it onto the other pole, and latch it.
Now, it did take a little bit more muscle than I expected to get these things latched on there.
Right.
Even with that handy-dandy design, I had to exert myself a little bit to get that thing latched.
Boy, takes a little bit of muscle.
They're really tough. really tough frame on that cot. Now you can use it just like that. So if you want a low bed, you can use it just like I've got it there. But I, for one, would prefer to take advantage of the height feature, the added legs that come with it, and just a beautiful, really interesting design, very robust, very stable. You know, when I was lying on her, she felt very nice and stable. You see how I'm using that other cot sort of like a table to hold the other parts of this cot. And that's another thing I like about having my cot raised like that. You know, you can, it's much easier for organization and moving around inside of a shelter when you've got something elevated like that where you can lay things on.
There's a little notch right there, and there's a hole in the leg. So when you slide that down in there, that little notch clicks into place there.
Yep, so they just clip in there like that. And I'm kind of taking my time. I've never set this up before, so you're seeing me set it up for the first time.
Have a feature here for holding your pillow, so your pillow doesn't wobble all over the place for you in the middle of the night.
I love that design with the pillow.
That's nice.
All right, here's the final cot that I wanted to show off. This would be like, I reckon, would fit into a category of a backpacking cot. I wouldn't use it like that. It's still too heavy. Like I said, the air mattress that I was showing off earlier works because it packs down so compact. It's comfortable enough to get a good night's sleep. At the same time, it allows you to make room in your pack for other important things. But it was surprisingly comfortable. This little simple backpacking cot was surprisingly comfortable and easy to set up, actually easier to set up than the Moonlance. And you know, once you've done this one time, once you've set these things up one time,
All right, these kind of work the same way as the one we just finished putting together. It's just a little bit different. It doesn't have that fancy mechanism on it to help you lock those things in, but that's what they look like. And I reckon just got to use your muscles to get that on both sides.
You know, the first time of setting something up is always the hardest. The next time you go to do it, there's no mystery to it. So you can set something up in a fraction of the time as it took you the first time. And I'm very fond of this little,
That wasn't too hard.
what I'm sure that they're marketing is a backpacking cot.
That's not too hard.
This cot also be exceptional if you're only going 4 or 5 miles back into the woods. I would definitely be willing to carry that, but not in the back country. Remember, I make a distinction between the woods and the back country. The back country for me is, if anything goes wrong, you know that there's like a day or so journey that you'll have to get hike to get out of there. That's what I consider backcountry. The woods is just, if anything goes wrong, you can just walk right out of the woods and be in town in 20 minutes, 30 minutes, an hour.
There we go.
Yeah, so I found that very comfortable. It's not my favorite thing to be lying so low to the ground, but it's very comfortable.
So there we go. We got 3 different cots. This one here is definitely the heaviest one. Does not pack down very well, and it's tremendously heavy. But of course, it's the easiest one to set up too, and it's pretty comfortable. Then we got this moon lens here, the black one there. That's an awfully nice cot. I love that. And if you check that out, it actually sits a little bit higher than the proper cot. So this one that stows away and packs down to a fraction of the size of this one actually sits a little bit higher up off the ground. And it's got that fancy pillow pocket there. And it's got those extra legs there. And in fact, if you want the cot to be lower, you can take those extensions out. And then the cot would sit on the ground similar to this one here. And this one, of course, is the lightest. It's comfortable. I was just lying down in it. It's comfortable, but it's pretty close to the ground. So, you don't get the height of like a proper bed. But it's very comfortable, packs down. Seems to me like it weighs about 5 or 6 pounds packed. Not too difficult to put together. In fact, that one was probably the easiest one, except for the proper cot. This one was probably the easiest to put together. This one took a little bit more work. Now, I will say this. I had never put these 2 together before in my life. So you seeing me do it on camera right now was my very first time, which means I had some figuring out to do. Later, if I'd go to put these together, it would take a fraction of the time it took tonight, simply because I know what I'm doing now and I know what to expect. So solid cots, I got to tell you. They're each one of them are great, but not each one of them is good for the same things. Like if space in your vehicle or in a pack is an issue, you wouldn't want to be taking that one. But if space and weight was not an issue, I'd say take that one. That's probably the easiest and the best one. But they've all got their pros and cons.
All right, so you've seen me set these things up. I wanted you to see how much effort it takes and how complex or not complex it is. And so now what I'm going to do is I'm going to show you how to take them apart so that you can see how complex or not complex that is. And that'll give you a nice idea of what you can expect if you get the hankering to get yourself one of these cots.
Another thing about this one here is that once you get that rod in there, there's a little pocket tab pull over. You pull it over the end of that pole so it don't go sliding out on you. I like that. See if it makes it hard. There you go. So there's that last cot that we put together. First cot we pulled apart, all broke down. That's how much it packs down to. Wasn't difficult taking it apart. Wasn't difficult getting it back in his bag. That mechanism on here is really something. It's got a lock right here that latches. So when you're taking that apart, you just unlatch that. It pops right open, comes right out. I really like that. That's a really nice invention there. And then these separate the same way like a tent. That easy. Like that. All right, here's the moon lens. As you can see, it doesn't pack down quite as much as that one we just got done packing away, but it packs down pretty good, pretty daggum good. And it feels to me like it's about 10 pounds, something like that. I'll get the stats and put them on the screen for you. Heaviest and bulkiest, a little bit less, well, a whole lot less heavy and a whole lot less bulky, and then the least heavy and the least bulky there on the end.
So I hope that gives you a good idea about the nature of those cots, what they might be best used for, what they might not be best used for. If you want to invest in something like that, none of the cots that I showed you here today are all that expensive. They're not really going to break the bank. I think, well, I'll have to look it up, but I'll provide links in the video description there so that you can check these out for yourself if you'd like to. And I hope that gives you some ideas moving forward. I appreciate you joining me here for the Practical Woodsman, and I hope you all have a wonderful week, a wonderful weekend. Y'all take care, and I'll see you in the next show.